Hey there everyone, I want to make a quick video on these infamous Chinese generic 4-color one-station screen printing presses. You can find them on Amazon, eBay, wherever. There are literally 200,000 videos on how to assemble these things out on YouTube. So the first thing everyone complains about is the instructions being terrible. Just go and look a little bit. You don't even need to deal with them. There are so many videos on how to put them together. However, I will address a couple of issues that I've seen in reviews for them. First and foremost, in the assembly that nobody seems to cover are these holes here. Everyone complains about, oh, they don't match up, they don't, whatever. First things first, these little flanges, these housings, will rotate on the bearing. They're stiff, but you can move them back and forth, and that'll help with the alignment on these. I've seen pictures of people complaining they don't line up, and these things are turned halfway sideways. Just grab onto it, give it a little push back and forth, and it will turn, and 9 times out of 10 that'll probably line up your holes. Just put in 1 or 2 of the bolts loosely, and then try and get the other side in, and it'll straighten itself out, or you can turn it just a little bit to get them to line up. Now, the other thing is sometimes they're not centered in here, and that is easily fixed with a 2mm Allen wrench or hex wrench. Put in these little set screws. You can loosen those up. There's 2 of them. There's one here and another one on the other side. And that will allow this whole axle assembly to slide back and forth. You want to try and get these things as close to center as you can. You might not need to do it at all, but it's helpful, especially if you're still having problems with those bolt holes. If these are both straight and they still don't line up quite right, then you can move them back and forth until they do. Next problem, everyone's always talking about the spring tension on these. Yes, it is bad. Part of it is that these things, when they come from the factory, are not always screwed in equal length on both sides. I'm sorry, actually I think you need to assemble these. Just make sure that they're put in the same amount on each side. That'll allow you sometimes to get enough adjustment to override the spring. However, they were so bad, as you can see, that I actually took off one of the springs on each of them. I don't know if this is going to cause a problem, because now it's only pulling on one side instead of both, so it might be pulling the arm over to one side. I haven't actually started to use this yet, because there are some problems that I want to address, and that's why I'm making this video here before I even started. So one option is take one of the springs off, only use one spring, and that'll loosen up the tension quite a bit. The biggest issue, I would say by far, is this hold down here, or the registration lock, whatever you want to call it. And that is that these tabs that line up in there are not all the same width. So you get one here. This one is actually just a little too big. It catches, but it's nice and snug side to side, like you would expect it to be. This one, a little bit looser, but it's still tight side to side. This one here, same thing. It's got a little bit of a wiggle. It's about the same. It still works. This one, look at how much that one moves back and forth. The problem that I see on these is this powder coating is not an even thickness, and I'm not even sure that these tabs are quite the same width to begin with. So I'll be putting together a video on how to fix this. I know how to do it, and that's what this beginning summary is about, I guess, some of the problems, and then I'll go into other videos on how to fix it. So stay tuned for that one. The other problem that I've noticed is this whole assembly will rock back and forth. In here there's kind of like a sleeve, a spacer sleeve that's about that big around. There's a hole in the bottom, hole in the top where it goes up, and there are bearings inside here. The problem that I see is that the holes drilled in this beam are too loose to properly grab that spacer on the inside. And you can see it actually moves the bolt down on the bottom because of it. This could be a problem because if you have this arm down and as you're pressing back and forth, it could actually rock this plate back and forth, which would then move your screen back and forth and give you ghosting or improper registration problems. So I have an idea on how to fix that as well, and I'll do a video on that also. Some of the other things people have talked about, these pieces being twisted and bent and bad welds. I think I maybe got a little lucky because all this stuff seemed to bolt up pretty good and pretty straight. For the most part, these aren't twisted. They seem to be welded okay. I mean, there really isn't any rocking in it, so I don't think it's going to be a problem. There's a couple other little tuning things that I can see that I'll put together videos on as well. But just bear in mind that some of the issues these machines come with can be relatively easily fixed. And I'll put together a couple of videos on that in hopefully the next few days. Thanks.